20th. I have the time as 6 o'clock. Everybody please rise for the pledge. And roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Here.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Here.
Mrs. Cope?
Here.
Mrs. Dalton?
Here.
Mrs. Berry?
Item number 4, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments on the agenda? Okay, roll call, please. Still not faster.
It's much better. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 5, I need a motion to approve item A, which is to accept the resignation of Michelle Berry effective Wednesday, May 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
And before we vote, we do appreciate Michelle's time on the board, but she did choose to resign effective on May 15th. Any other questions or comments? So roll call, please.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And item B, I need a motion to establish the process for filling a board vacancy in compliance with Board Policy 0145.
So moved. Second.
And Isaac, I think I'm handing it over to you.
Yeah, so this is something that doesn't happen very often, so we've reached out to OSBA, Ohio School Boards Association, which we are members of, to get their guidance. Also reviewed our policy. So earlier this week, I shared with the board, board policy. I'm actually going to put it up on the screen just in case anybody has any questions about that. Policy 0145, that specifically addresses filling a board vacancy. The other thing, basically in discussion with OSBA and with our board attorney, the board has, it's very small, I'll get there, I'll zoom in here in a second for you. The board has the ability to, there are reasons vacancies can happen. One was a resignation. The board has the ability to replace and appoint a replacement for Mrs. Berry. Whenever a vacancy occurs, it cannot be happening within the first 10 days of the vacancy. So today is day 0, tomorrow will be day 1 of the vacancy since the board has accepted the resignation tonight. So you can't appoint anybody for the next 10 days, but you have to appoint somebody prior to day 30. If you don't appoint somebody within the first 30 days, then it goes to, I believe, the the Common Pleas Court in Warren County. So the attorney's advice, you can choose to appoint and handle this in any way. It really is the decision of the Board of Education on how you want to move forward as a board and find the replacement. This is what the current board policy says, that you'll take the following steps. We'll seek qualified and interested candidates from the community through news media, which we will publish tomorrow with the Dayton Daily News, our provider for the news media, word of mouth, contacts with appropriate organizations, solicit input and qualified candidates. Applicants shall submit a letter of their interest in writing to the presiding officer of the Lebanon City Board within the given time frame. You get to decide what that time frame is as a Board of Education. We would have them sent to the board office addressed to Mrs. Irvin, but then we would share out those applications with the Board of Education. And then the board shall review all interested candidates to decide what their qualifications are. From that point forward, you could do whatever you want. Interview them, interview several of them, depends on what the interest is. The advice of the attorney is the board should discuss in public session the process at which you will be following to fill this vacancy. So I sent earlier this week a toolkit from OSBA that had sample applications in it, that had some sample questions you may want to consider asking board candidates. I did send also, just for your information, when candidates run for the Board of Education in the last 2 elections, our Teachers Union Association, LEA, has asked them questions and asked them to provide answers to those questions. Some of you who have run recently may have filled that out, just as options of questions you may want to ask. So that's sort of that's the review of board policy. And then also, from that point in time, then we would discuss what you want to do. I did send out a timeline to the board and thought that maybe in looking at it, if you were going to get together, and it'd have to be a work session, a board meeting that we publish to review those applications if you want to do that together as a board. So we needed to look at setting some maybe work sessions or board meetings, special board meetings in the next couple of weeks. You could appoint at the June 17th board meeting, I believe it was June 17th, Monday. That's within the 30-day time window. So you wouldn't have to have a special meeting for the appointment.
So we're deciding now we're going to talk through now.
You need to talk through now what you want to do as a Board of Education. Are there questions? Are there things what do you want us to do? How long? So I guess I guess I would start, I can kind of work through this. Does the board, I'm assuming based off of the board policy that you want to publish that there's a vacancy and ask for interested parties. Is that a true statement?
True.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you like us to use the OSBA application that was in the toolkit or something else? Does anybody have any thoughts on?
I think
that.
I've prepared some questions that I can read off here if we want.
Or you could send them to us, but that's fine. I just want to make sure that more about the process that you would follow. So application in a window. We're going to put out an application. What would be a suitable amount of time that you think that could be, that you would want that out so you could follow the timeline that I sent?
So if we send it out tomorrow and gave people, or put out the notice tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And then we gave until the end of the month, that would give us 3 weeks to review and select the candidate to approve on the 17th of June. I take that back. That would give us basically 2
10
weeks.
days, yeah.
Here we have, if we did this tomorrow with next Monday is a holiday, so the 28th be a suitable timeframe, 7 days?
I would think that would be fine, and then that way we could have someone in place by the next meeting.
Are you comfortable having us accept via email? Because mail might be
Yeah,
challenging.
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So a deadline of Tuesday, that gives them 1 week. That'll be Tuesday, the 28th.
Yes.
Looking at the OSBA application, we'll make sure we can adapt that to, it looked like it was modifiable. I think we can put it out there for them to do. Do you have, based off of the email that I shared with the board, the week of June 3rd, that gives you 2 weeks, June 3rd, the week of June 3rd and the week of June 10th in terms of reviewing applications and determining the candidate. Is there something that would work on the week of June 3rd, or do you want to do that one time? What would your thought be?
Yeah, I think that week's, let's see, that gives us, if we did it the Tuesday, the 3rd, that's another week after those are back. So that gives us a week to review.
Right.
I will be traveling back from an out-of-town baseball tournament on the 2nd.
June 4th would be the Tuesday that week. June
Oh, you're
3rd will
right.
be the
Monday.
Monday. Is there anything last week that week that would prevent? You could do it any time of day. Roy's favorite, 7 o'clock in the morning would
Yeah.
work.
I'm good with 7.
I'm fine with 7.
Does that work for others
Yeah,
to
June
get it?
4th? Yeah.
June 4th
I
in the
have no
morning?
vacations or anything planned, so I'll be,
Okay.
And
June,
just, yeah, to keep the theme going, we could then meet with, quote-unquote finalist on the 11th. If there are multiple candidates.
If there are multiple candidates, we can set things up for probably have to do the evening.
Yeah.
Will everybody be in town on the 11th? Does that work for an afternoon or evening?
Yes, I think that's fine.
Okay. And then that would meet the timeline. Were there questions that you want, or do you want to just provide us with some, I guess, are there questions you would like to ask or things that you want to make sure we cover in the application?
So I'll read off my list, no particular order, and we can modify these, or
Is this coming from
Not.
the toolkit or
This is
something?
me.
Just you?
First one is, why do you want to be on the board? Second one would be, and I can slow down or give you these later,
That's fine.
how you currently or formerly, what is your current or former involvement within Lebanon City Schools?
Okay.
What uniquely qualifies you to be on the board? What are 1 to 2 things the schools do very well? Where do the schools have room to improve? And that's it. The last one's really about availability, but that can be asked during the interview process. Anything else you guys want to add?
Those are good.
So when we receive the applications, Mr. Severs,
Yeah.
then we will go into executive session to discuss the applicants, or do we do that in a public meeting?
My understanding, I will seek clarification and answer your question after talking with the attorney. My understanding is can be done in executive session because it's considering the appointment of a public official. What has to be done in public is the discussion that we're having now, so it is transparent how the decision will be made.
Okay.
So if there's a different answer for that, I will let the board know based off of my follow-up with him.
So 7 days to apply, 7 days to review.
We will get the board the applications and things after the deadline, so you could review prior to the meeting, and then have a discussion about what you want to do on the 4th.
And I'm assuming on the 17th, we take an official vote as the board
Correct,
to appoint.
correct. Does anybody else have any questions or want to add anything? Any thoughts that you want to add while we're on this topic?
I thought all the OSBA questions were fine.
Yeah, we can
I mean,
definitely pull some of
yeah.
that as well. There's others on.
So what Mrs. Irvin and I can do is send you guys information. I'll send it to you either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning to make sure that you're okay with the questions that that will be included. And you have the ability to say yes, no, or please add this to it. This is your decision, not ours. We're just going to be collecting the information and sharing it at this point in time.
Yeah, my only piece with the OSBA is there's 18 questions, and if we want to add a few of our own,
I don't
want to
believe that
discourage
we.
somebody from wanting to fill out 20-something
My
questions.
my advice would be that you ask a small number of questions to get the answers that you want to see. 18 questions will be a deterrent for people to apply, in my opinion. So. And just as, like.
Or if someone's not willing to answer 18 questions, they shouldn't be on the board either.
So do you think
Yeah.
maybe we should go through the list of OSBA and each of us pick 2 out of that list and then reduce it? Or do we want to go with a full 18 plus the additional 5 here?
If you want to, some of the questions that Mike brought up came from the
Yeah,
OSBA,
they're
like,
very
why are you
similar.
interested in the board? So if there's something on the list, I guess I would ask, if there's something on the list that you would like to ask from OSBA, then please just
Can
send it
you
to me.
maybe put the questions up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were similar from the Meet the Candidates night
Yeah.
also.
I mean, a lot of the questions are yes
Yeah.
or no answers. mean, if appointed, would you be a candidate for reelection at the next election? That's just yes or no. I mean,
So the first one was already mentioned.
And 3, I had something similar to that.
The qualifications, or is there anything in the first 5 questions that you, let's just go to the first
I
one.
personally don't like number 4 because things can change. I mean,
And this is practically a full 4-year term.
but it's just 2. They have to
Oh.
run, so they'll
Oh, they
run
have to
when
run. Oh,
you
okay.
and Roy are up.
Oh, okay.
For
I
a-
thought the same thing, and
Oh,
Isaac,
okay.
Isaac
The
corrected
next
me
one.
willingly on
Okay.
that one.
All right, so
It is my understanding that the next time the Board of Education has candidates on the ballot, that this position would be up for a 2-year term to finish
Oh.
the rest of the term, while other candidates will be running for a 4-year term.
okay.
I guess for the sake of this, we can look through this, but I guess what I would ask would be that you please take a look at this, that's in your email that I sent. Because it might be easier for us just to say, I'm good with these 2 questions, or maybe I'm not good with number 8, for example, whatever it may be. I just randomly chose 8, but, we want to make sure that it gets the answers that you want, so you can differentiate between candidates, but also is something that within 1 week that they can
Can you
give.
go back up to the first couple?
Yep.
I like number 8.
Yes. So really, the only thing that's not on here, I think that I mentioned was current and past involvement in the schools. So
And
maybe
those
to
first-
Roy's point, you have them fill out all 18 plus that one. And you say, if you're really interested, here's your 19 questions.
Okay. Well, I will put it together in a way that they can modify, the document and send it to you either this evening or first thing tomorrow morning to review. Okay? So the timeline sort of laid out, we'll make sure in terms of whether it's a work session or a special board meeting, with executive session or what that may look like. And we'll send you all of those things in terms of a timeline. We will include an outline, right? If you only get one person who's interested, you
Right.
don't have to have a time to interview them on the 11th,
I
but
believe we're going to get more than one.
Probably,
What I've
but-
already heard.
Well, that's a
So-
good point. What if we would get one? Do we have to accept that person if it's not the right fit and it's only 1 or maybe even 3 and it doesn't seem like it's the right fit? Do we have to?
you
Or do you
can,
get more time to?
if you don't decide within the 30 days, then it would go to, somebody in the courts to make that decision and, the probate court. So, I think it would be, it talks about in here, the word of mouth as an option, things like that. It doesn't mean that you can't go out and see who is interested, right? And just rely on them having to notice the announcement that goes out in the papers or on our school website.
And you put it on social media as well.
We will put it to the website, to social media, to the Dayton Daily News through Mr. Richter. And we'll share that information and get it out, hopefully, so people can see in different ways. Okay? So be looking for your email and provide some input. We're good. Let us know if you're okay with us to send it out tomorrow. Okay?
Yes.
Anything else on that before we move on?
Don't believe so.
I just need to take a.
Need a roll call?
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 6, hearing the public. Did we have anybody sign up today? I did not see the paper.
I don't believe so. The others ones are invited guests, so. There was nobody signed up, I don't believe. Nobody stood up to say that they wanted to speak this evening.
Good? B, special recognition. Mr. Severs?
Yes, we have two members of the Lions Club that are here this evening. If you ladies would step back to the podium, introduce yourselves, and talk a little bit why you're here, and then thanks for being here with us this evening.
Okay, well, I'm Mary Bookman, the treasurer of the Lebanon Lions Club, and one of our main reasons to be here this evening is because we have a check for $800 that we want to donate for boys and girls to have vision exams and new glasses. Okay, we'll do that again. I'm Mary Bookman from the Lebanon Lions Club, also a teacher here at Lebanon Schools at Bowman Primary School. But one of our main reasons for being here tonight, we try each year to add more funds to the vision exam and eye program here in Lebanon Schools so that kids that need glasses can get glasses and get eye exams as needed. This year, we've been doing a $500 donation each year, but they used up most of the funds this year, which is good. So we wanted to add a little more to that, so we'll be giving $800 to that program this year, and then if there becomes more of a need, we'll certainly add to that. So that's something the nurses, we work with the nurses on that, and they let us know when boys and girls need exams, and if they need glasses, then we take care of that. Just to add a couple more things that we do here locally and in the district. One thing we do is our eyeglass collection program. We have some boxes at the different places. There might even be one here at the district office. We have one at Lebanon High School, at Bowman, at Donovan, at area. Sibsey Klein has them. The LCMB Bank has eyeglass collection boxes, and some of the local optometrists. And what happens to those are actually collected, and my husband, Pat, who's also a member of the Lion Club and our zone chair for our district, is over collecting those glasses for our district, and he just recently went to the British Virgin Islands, and they took those glasses. We collected 30,000 pairs of glasses in our district, which covers Lebanon, it covers from Chillicothe up to kind of West Carrollton area. So that was huge, and so it was really neat. He got to actually go see students receive those glasses and things that we've been collecting here in the area. So if you're not a part of that yet, please, we appreciate you turning those in and use eyeglasses, sunglasses, and also eyeglass cases. Another thing that you might not be aware of we do is preschool vision screenings at the early learning centers all over the county. So that's something that a lot of our retired volunteers and members that are able to get out there and do that. We do that every fall at the local preschools and things. So that's another way that we kind of help in the area of vision. The Lions Club isn't just about vision. I always thought it was just vision until I became a member. We do also help in the areas of hunger. We help out at the food pantry, the local food pantry, diabetes research, pediatric cancer, youth, and the environment. Also with the food, we always donate to the Warrior Backpack Program. We also help out with the program where they're collecting money for lunches, for the Lunch Step program. So that's another way that we try to help in the area of food, making sure I don't forget something. Oh, one thing that's dear to my heart is I'm a Title I reading teacher at Bowman, and one thing that they've been doing for years is purchase books for our students. We used to do it at the book fair, but now we kind of ask the Title I teachers, they get together and figure out which time's the best. This year, there were all the kids that took a new book home this last week that was purchased by the Lebanon program. We have around 320 students in that program, so everybody got a book from the Lebanon Lions Club program too this year.
I'm Cheryl Brunn, current president of the Lions Club as well, and I'm also the high school Leo Club advisor. We have a group of baby lions that we are raising at the high school, and Tony Crawford is our teacher advisor. And we just awarded 4 of our Leos $1,000 scholarships each at the awards ceremony last week. Our Leos love to visit the seniors that live at Station Hill, which is a community living facility where people of low income live, and they're mostly seniors, and the kids love to go there and spend time with them. We were just there last week also and cooked out for them. It was a great turnout. They loved it. They love our kids coming there to visit. The other thing that we do as a club, as well as the Leos, we collect plastic to make benches. So your Kroger bags and, any soft stretchy plastic like that can be turned into Trex decking. And Trex then, we have to collect 1,000 pounds, which is a lot of plastic, over a year. They'll turn those into benches, and we have one at Donovan, at Bowman.
Do we have 2 at the high school?
We have 2 at the high school. And we also have 1 at the food pantry and I think 2 at Miller Park. But the kids collect those, weigh them, take them to Kroger, and we do have collection boxes in each of the schools. And I think there's one here too, that the kids, come and take them, and then we turn them in and get a bench. So that's exciting. And I think that's it. So.
So, and obviously, we do other things, that we help with the after prom, and we do several other things. One of our big events this summer, if you can come out, the Route 42 car show is on July 20th. That's one of our big fundraisers. And then, of course, we do the Lebanon Lions Passbook. Some of you may see those around town that we sell throughout the year. We always appreciate all the businesses that help and put towards that, because all those funds are what we can turn back in and use for our students and our community.
We're always looking for sponsors for the car show. I'm looking at you, Mr. McCutcheon.
Yes.
And the sponsorships is what makes the scholarships and the reading programs and all of those things possible.
Yes. And we're also always looking for community members that are willing to serve in the community and do give back to our community. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you've done for our students. It was great to be at the awards program last week and see you guys there with kids getting scholarships. It was very, very much appreciated. So we'd like to get a photo of you guys with your big check in the Board of Education, if that's okay. Mrs. Planica's here. So the board, if you want to step out in front of the table, that would be great. What we may just do is have you stand there, so you don't have to come back out again, and then we'll have Mr. Strasser afterwards with his picture. Then we'll talk about that afterwards, if that's okay.
Okay, put the check a little higher. There we go.
Thank you very much. Board, if you want to stay there. Board, stay there. Mr. Strasser's going to come up.
You want to go and read that part off?
I will go ahead and we'll talk about it after you get the photo. We'll just, that way you don't have to come back out again, if that's okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Strasser, if you want to step back there to the podium in case you want to say anything, but I'd like to talk about you for a second, if that's okay.
Okay.
So you are, the board, I sent this out about 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe, in one of my updates. Mr. Strasser, Robert Strasser, is a local artist. His wife actually is here. She teaches for us. Kids are in the district as well. We've been looking since we moved into this building 2.5 years ago at this point in time for ways to fill the white walls and gray walls with something to make it feel like home. And when people come in to register their students, this is the first thing they see and the first picture of Lebanon City Schools that they have is how we greet them at the front door and what's in our lobby and how we introduce them. And so we were looking for some way to capture, this is the school building that you drive by and you see, and here's the name of it. That's where your kid's going to go. And we talked about photos. We had somebody that we reached out to, and for several months, they said, yeah, I can do that. And then finally they said, we can't do that. And so we were introduced to Mr. Strasser. He said, I can absolutely do pencil sketches of the school buildings. And so what you see hanging in the hallway is artwork done by him. So I just want to say thank you. We have received amazing feedback already from the folks that have come in to see it. They're beautiful. They're great pieces of art, and so we're so thankful for you doing that. If you have a few things you'd like to say or anything about the pieces, that would be great. But thank you so much for contributing that to the district.
Just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to do these for the school. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they're great. Anybody from the board have anything they want to offer to that?
It's amazing. I mean,
It's really nice. A lot better than the pictures of Barry I used to draw.
In detention.
in detention. But I will say this, Mrs. Strasser started teaching kindergarten in 1996. And because I was really in a hurry to get my son out of my home, I brought him, I was the first parent with the first child in her first day of teaching kindergarten in 1996. She was Miss Bachman back then.
Wow.
And it is, every time I see her, I just think, I mean, it was great. And now he's wanting to move back to this area so his daughter can he still calls you Miss Bachman, but yeah, just, remember their little hats they wore with the bus number and,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was her first day of teaching right out of college. And remember, you were like really nervous. And I'm like, it's okay, they won't break. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it was great.
So Robert, which other buildings have you finished or working on? They're all finished. Can we get a picture to go with that? When you post that one, can you do all
Yeah,
of them?
nice.
Really appreciate those. They're beautiful.
It's a great photo of Barry. I mean, that looks like pictures, and so they're great. I'm so thankful for the work. And we did have a local sign company come in and do signs below them that give the school name and then the year that they were built. And so you get a little bit of a history of what happened in the district. And so thank you very much for doing that. So
Thank you. Item C, the student board member update. Our student's not here, so Mr. Severs is going to take over. She graduates and she just doesn't show up.
Okay. Alexa sent us her presentation. There's some great photos in there I want to go through real quick for you. Just, we did have NHS blood drive, and so you can see the numbers there. We overachieved the goal that they had set for themselves. And we continue to hear great feedback from the folks that come in and do the blood drive in terms of the students' behavior, their willingness to serve. It is one of the most successful student blood drives in the area, and they're very thankful to come back every year. So thanks to our NHS for leading that way. Daylight Prom, this was held down in Westchester. We were actually at Lebanon High School, were the originators of the Daylight Prom. Jody Titmus's class did that. It's now expanded across the county, across the region. There were people from Butler and Warren County there, students. And I think they said like over 900 people in attendance. It was phenomenal. I think there's a video of me dancing with some students that may be circulating. I posted
Oh, it's definitely
pictures.
circulating.
I posted pictures. I did not post the video. We had a great time that day, and so that was a big hit. And we had a lot of great student leadership and service from other students there as well, making it a very special day for our students with disabilities. And so it was a great opportunity. Hope Week, our Hope Squad conducted Hope Week, writing positive messages around the school about mental health and activities. Very thankful for our Hope Squad and the students' involvement with that. And you begin to see a lot more, just even from the district, in sharing mental health support and things like that that for us to continue to put it out there to our community, especially heading into the summer, about where parents and students can get support if they need it. ROTC, we continue to have a great ROTC program. They had their annual award ceremony at the high school cafeteria. There's a photo there. Staff Appreciation Week took place recently. I want to thank all of our PTOs and parents and communities, businesses and things like that, that participated and supported our staff during that week. It was, they felt very much appreciated and seen and valued, and so that means a lot to our staff. So thank you for those that did that. The senior clap out took place this year. The picture could not be in the home bleachers because there's obviously no home bleachers there. So we got a photo in the gymnasium and on the 50-yard line. But it's a great tradition that we have, and students going back to the old buildings to see their teachers and the younger students. I was in several of the buildings that day as it happened, and to see elementary kids excited for kids graduating high school, I think it really sets the tone of connection between our buildings, and also gives them something to look forward to, right? That's the goal, right? Graduation is the goal, and so there's something that they can look forward to. It's a great tradition we have here. Trout release, Mrs. Hogan's conservation class at the high school, they raised trout from eggs. They were able to release them in the Armco Park, and a program that they partnered with DNR on. And so this was actual, them seeing the life cycle, what's happening there. And so Armco Park has some new trout. Masters of Calculus. Fourth quarter students in calculus competed in Masters of Calculus, and you can see here that the coveted corduroy jacket went to Tristan Lopez. Actually, from Tristan Lopez, looks like, who's that there?
Sam Stoller.
Sam Stoller, okay. I missed that, sorry. I should have read it. And then LHS Staff Member of the Year, the yearbook students at the high school began giving awards away recently, and so Mrs. Thiering, high school math teacher, was recognized as the staff person of the year for Lebanon High School, and so they're there with a photo. And then this is for Alexa. She can't be here this evening, but she'll be attending Ohio Northern in the fall, studying business management through the honors program and running track and field for them. So here's her with a polar bear. Or Mike, is that you in the costume or no?
That is.
Okay. So thanks, Alexa, for your service on the board this year and providing the monthly updates from the board at the board meetings. So, and then tomorrow night in the auditorium is the Lebanon ESPYs Athletic Awards program down there. It'll be a great event. I think the theme is Hawaiian Luau. Yep, that'll be fun. And then the students' last day is Thursday, and staff last day on Friday. So.
Thank you. We'll just let you keep going with superintendent reports.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Superintendent report. So, a couple things here just to give you an update on where we are, strategic planning update. June 24th, the impact group will come back and meet with the members of the administrative team to review stakeholder input. We had a ton of input from staff, students, parents, community members. They were overwhelmed by the amount of surveys and things that we got. And so they've been kind of crunching that information, pulling out the input. They themselves are reviewing the stakeholder input and will come back with some potential goals and objectives. And what they want to do is review the input that we've received with the administrators, discuss possible goals and objectives, and we have some discussions about 3 to 4 hours that day that we've set aside for some time with them to work through that first step. They would like to present, probably just remotely, to the Board of Education. Here's where an overview of the stakeholder input, some things that they think that we should be aware of as a district, talk about the goals and objectives, give you an opportunity to provide input prior to it going further. So I'm just thinking that it might be something that we could do like before the July board meeting. That way we don't have to come on a separate night, even if we have to move the board meeting back that month or something a little bit. They're talking about maybe an hour timeline. So we could, we can decide what to do with that, but that's something that just to think about for the month of July. And then August 5th, the impact group will return again based off the discussion with the board, based off of what they heard from the administrators in June, finalize the goals and objectives, and then begin to sort of assign action steps. So who's going to be responsible for what part of that strategic plan? So that's where we are with that. Any questions on strategic plan or thoughts on July with the Board of Education? Would that work to do a work session just before the board meeting? July 15th is the board meetings currently, yes. If that works for everybody. If that date doesn't work, obviously we'd have to move the board meeting. We can move I haven't established the date with them yet because they'll just be doing it sort of a Zoom call with all of us. So we'll make sure that works for everybody and we'll send that out. Legacy project updates. So we've sent some information out through social media in the last week. I'm just trying every month to talk about our construction projects and the strategic plan. Currently at the stadium, they're working on foundations. Posted pictures. I mean, those things are huge. The guy said, this isn't about holding the bleachers up. The amount of concrete that's going in the ground is actually designed to hold the bleachers down. It's a completely integrated system, and there will be no gaps in the aluminum floorboards and seats and everything. And so they have to work on downforce and making sure that in storms, they don't.
Just a big metal parachute.
Correct, but there's a lot of concrete in the ground right now. It's amazing to see them doing work. Originally, they thought that process would take 10 to 14 days for foundations. It hasn't stopped raining in the last 2 weeks, it seems like. So they're a little bit delayed on the foundation work. The electrical work will begin as soon as the foundations are in the ground, so they aren't in the same space at the same time. Running some new lines underground. The steel structure and the aluminum grandstands will be installed in June. They said once they start, it's a 10-day process, and the bleachers will be done within a 10-day window. They're expecting to have it back to us and done with their installation and off-site by July 1st, which will allow us to do the things that we need to. The speakers that were purchased by the boosters last year need to be installed. With new wiring run, finalize the electrical work, press box technology, and all the stuff that goes on in there. We are having to add handicap accessible path, so that will be done this summer during other paving projects. They're repainting the scoreboard. It still functions really well, but it's faded. Actually, a lot of the sponsors were sponsors that paid for the original scoreboard installation years ago. And we have not been going back to them regularly to do that. So we're actually kind of starting fresh with painting the scoreboard, and then we'll be repairing the fences just to kind of clean everything up prior to that first game and event come August out there. If you go to the high school in the next couple days, they'll be installing the 60-foot tall concrete light poles. Their crew is on site this week. New LED lights will be attached when they're on the ground, then lifted into place with the crane. Hopefully that will be done, and they'll be out of there by the end of the week with new light pole installation. I am just going to click on this real quick because I want to point out to the community and to the Board of Education, there's a link that says progress photos there. If you go to the Legacy Project website, you can get to it from our website. We have two different slideshows that I continue to update photos to with Mr. Butler, Mr. Pantling, Ms. Planica when we take photos. This obviously starts from the very beginning when we had bleachers out there, the demolition. These photos were taken today. So I just kind of giving you an idea of they're almost done with the front course of these foundations. And some people have asked, how much bigger are these bleachers going to be than the old one? I took this photo sort of for a reference. That blacktop was the walkway that got you to the old bleachers. Those pillars are, I believe, 10 foot on center apart from each other. So the new bleachers are going to be at least 40 feet longer than the old bleachers, stretching down to about 5 yards deep in the end zone on both ends. And so they were able to just cut this out. We didn't have to remove that blacktop. But it gives us, the other thing I want to point out, this is Mr. Goss. He's the guy who's doing this work. This is his process he's developed. This is him sanding with a little sanding stone the top of each one of those foundation pillars because he wants to make sure that it looks right. And so it's smooth. It is unbelievable. He gets in every single hole at the end of it, wets it down. This is a brush. He's slapping some water on it, and then he's sanding it with a little sanding stone, each pillar, and they'll be pulling those frames off here in the next day or two. Great guy. We're really fortunate to have them working with us out there. So
It's 40 feet longer on each end.
on each end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be massive. It's going to be massive. So that's just you can go there. Those photos are updated almost daily whenever we make it down to the stadium to take some new pictures. If anybody's interested, wants to follow along, I'd encourage you to do that, both for there and the stadium project at the high school. We want to recognize our Project Excellence winners. They're teachers every year through the Warren County Area Progress Council. Kim Dillon, Lebanon High School Intervention Specialist, was a recipient. And then Lindsay Tepe, a second grade teacher at Bowman Primary, was the recipient as well. They were recognized this month at a ceremony at the Warren County Career Center the same night of Community Builders. And so the board was not able to attend, but I attended that evening. And then our Franklin B. Walter recipient is Noah Tamavong. Noah was the Franklin B. Walter recipient for us this year. He's pictured here with Miss Terry Harris, his influential teacher that he nominated, who teaches social studies at Lebanon High School, and Mr. Reynolds, the high school principal. So congratulations to those folks on their recognition this year. And the last thing I just want to point out, we'll go over this a little bit later, but so remind me to put this back up when we talk about it, if you guys are bored, the starting and ending times. So, okay, that's it for me.
Thank you.
I did want to comment about the webcast that Mr. McCutcheon and Mr. Sievers and was it Mr. Vandergriff did.
Yeah.
And if anyone, I don't know if we can get the link there, but it was very good on the legacy project and what we're doing with that, and where the funds are going and what the goals are.
We had a good time shooting that video.
That was
It was
good.
interesting. We talked while they were just testing the microphones and cameras, and we sat over here and the guy's like, "Okay, that's it. That's a good episode." And we're like, "What?" And he's like, "That was awesome. What you guys just did and sharing the stories about Lebanon City Schools and the people that have gone before and kind of the traditions of things that happen here was a great." That was fun to spend that time together with you and Coach Vandegrift. So we did share that on social media recently for our community to see, and videos like that are also available on our district YouTube channel as well. If you just go to YouTube and search for Lebanon City Schools, we have a page there that those videos are stored on. So thanks for bringing that up.
And E will be the board committee reports, so student achievement liaison, Mrs. Dalton.
Okay. This month, there are just a few slides, although there's a lot going on at all of the schools just to finish up the year, whether it be final testing or getting grades finalized or last programs or vocal events and musical events. So there's a lot going on in these final days, but I am just highlighting a few. And one of the things, I'll get to this picture in a second, but at Bowman, the Lebanon Library Summer Reading Program is kicking off between May 17th and 21st. So all students out there that are interested, the library does a great job of inviting students in all age groups to do lots of reading over the summer. And then the readathon took place to fund new playground equipment, and they raised up to $30,000 and had an effort to try to make reading fun at Bowman. So I think there was a lot of involvement from the student body there. And then on May 3rd, they honored the volunteers and PTO with a breakfast. And we just want to say thanks for everyone that offers up their time and devotes it to the school, because it makes a big difference. So, good. And we can go to the next slide. This was a event that took place at the high school where we invited the junior high students in for a career and activity fair. And there were high school students along with some local businesses that participated in this to show junior high students what is out there and what's available and what their future looks like. So I think that was a successful event, and we want to thank the Career Experience Department for trying to get that going.
For those of you who know Bunny Brooks, I saw her in the hallway that day. We had a lot of local businesses that were involved. It was great, so thanks to those. She said, I've already got plans on how we're going to make it better next year. And I said, okay, well, let's wrap this one up first. But that's.
Was that a first event that's
This
ever
was the
taken
first
place?
time they've done the junior high one this way.
Okay,
so,
that's
yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah,
So
that was,
that's,
yep,
that's really, that's
good.
cool.
it was good.
Okay. Okay, and then this was a nice community service event that some kids put together, Souls for Souls, and they collected 1,200 pair of shoes that they sent to Haiti and Honduras. So our Lebanon students do so many community service events. This is just one of a few others that I saw that they were participating in, but this is great, and I'm sure that they feel good about what they're doing and the shoes that they're providing. So that's an example of that. And this is our high school graduation that took place on Saturday. A nice event with the band that participated. The students gave great speeches, thanks to Alexa Lane, that is our student board member. She gave a great speech, and our valedictorians gave great speeches, and it always is just a great event to highlight Lebanon City Schools and the outcome. So.
I'm glad Mr. Rickers grabbed a photo on stage of this moment. We all kind of stood there and thought, like, okay, this is a cool picture. We were behind this, right, and our students honoring the flag, but also our kids here in the front doing the color guard as well. And so it was a great evening. So thanks for the folks that participated. So.
Okay.
Okay, CAT Committee, Mr. McCutcheon.
Well, we did meet this afternoon at 5 p.m. right prior to this board meeting, and in attendance was Mike Gliotti, Mike Johnson, Bill Haynes, Tina Flagg, Mr. Lane, and myself. We spent about 50 minutes discussing all the information in this binder. I apologize, I have not had an opportunity to really digest it, but it is the new 5-year forecast, and there is a lot of good data in here. You are more than welcome to take my binder as long as you promise to give it back, because I will go through it. Karen went through a lot of detail with us. The 2 new union negotiations are now in our 5-year forecast. Numbers really have not changed that significantly. She's been right on target with everything from what I can tell. And we're happy to announce that there's no new levies coming for a while. So that's always good news. So did I about cover it, Mike?
You did.
All right. But please, if anybody wants to take this home, there's a lot of data in there.
Okay. Legislative Liaison, Mrs. Cope.
There's lots of things that have gone into committees as we're heading into summer, many different things occurring at our state level. I would say probably the most notable thing that's occurred within the last week or so is the Governor DeWine signed House Bill 250, which requires districts to adopt a cell phone usage policy. Districts have until July 1st of 2025 to have this in place. But there's also a bunch of other things that made it into that bill, which, as I read the bill, many of the things seem to be unrelated. But a couple notable things would be they're going to permit licensed educators with a grade band specification under the former law to renew their license either in accordance with the former law or the law that's in effect during the license renewal date, which helps in some ways with some teachers and their very restricted licensure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. That was the concern we had about it, was switching from a pre-K 3 to a license and then going back to the old K-8 licenses or whatever it was going to be, would be limiting to the people who got their licenses during the restrictive time period. So it will be, it's also not really going into effect for a while because it only changed with students entering college, studying education. So it's going to be there's going to be a period of time before those new licenses go into effect. So I think it does give the teachers a little bit of flexibility to have an expanded license that they didn't have before.
Yeah, I think it's a positive change.
It has nothing to do with cell phones, by the way.
It has nothing to do with cell phones.
Nothing to do with cell phones. but-
Right? Another thing which also has to do with licensure and not about cell phones, they're stating that licensed teachers can be employed by a district to teach 2 grade levels outside of their designated grade band, and that teacher is considered properly certified or a licensed teacher. So it kind of gives some leeway there also with districts and teachers, which I think is positive since there's been some shortage on teachers over the last several years, but once again, has nothing to do with cell phones.
Board, you'll be happy to know we already have a cell phone policy in place. We modified it at the beginning of the school year, if you remember, because our junior high went to not allowing cell phones for this school year to be used during the school day. And so we're already in compliance with this policy. If that's something we want to look at, changing what grade levels we have restrictions on in the future, we can do that, but we're already in compliance, so.
And as a parent of a junior high student, I think that was a huge success, what happened across the parking lot this year.
Yep.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. In Warren County Career Center, a couple of updates there. I was able to attend their senior awards night a couple weeks ago, and then their graduation was the Thursday before ours. So, but it was nice to see those kids participate in both the Career Center and their homeschool graduation. It was really neat to see at their graduation all the different schools represented within the audience and the seniors. At our last, we had a meeting, I think it was a couple weeks ago. It was actually a work session meeting, but it was, they've heard the voters. The bond issue for the new Career Center was defeated twice, and at this time, there's not going to be a third attempt to put that back on the ballot. But instead, there are talks of ways to, are they making best use of space there? They think they can increase the student population, not near to the degree that they had hoped for, but still ways to bring in more students to experience just the great things going on at the Career Center. And that would be my update on that one. So moving on to item 7, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting from April 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Karen, I did not look. Did the vote issue that we had in the CAT committee, did that carry over to these minutes too? I didn't even look. So our CAT committee, we realized the votes all said none because the system didn't register the voting. Just want to make sure. They are there, perfect. Okay, I didn't look at that detail earlier, so appreciate that. So we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 8, I need a motion to approve items A through J. Oh, wait a minute, A through L. Apologize for that.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Irvin?
Okay. So tonight is the forecast night. I will not subject you to as much detail as I did the CAC committee, but we do have a lot to cover. So jumping really quickly into what we were working with as of November, the green box is this current school year, which, as you know, we're almost done with. I can't believe that is the truth of the year, but that's where we are. So as of November in 2023, we're going to start deficit spending this year, and we were going to consistently remain that way for the remainder of the forecasted period. We were going to land with about a $9.5 million carryover balance. And if you go to the next slide, this is the current forecast that we will present to you for approvals before I can send to the state. So again, green box stays the same. In November of '24, we'll have a year drop off and the actuals will happen. But in between November and May, you see the same number of years, or the same years represented here. We're going to, according to this forecast, land at about 9 million. So not a huge drop. I feel like every single time I've given you a forecast, this number has changed dramatically. This is the first year, or the first 6 months, that it hasn't changed. But as I explained to the CAC committee, a lot of stuff is changing. It just didn't change the ending number very much. We are still deficit spending every single year. So we have to monitor those expenses and hopefully try to minimize the growth. I say this every single time, but the last few years is really just a guess. It's our best guess. And the further out you go, the worse of a guess it gets, right? Because we only can base those expenses, those revenues on what we're seeing today. But still a very positive outlook. So this is just a really quick glance visual. The yellow bar, again, is your cash balance, continually going down, no change there. And then the black column are your revenues, steadily increasing, but not by much. And then the gray bars are your expenses, steadily increasing by a little bit more than the revenues, right? And so as those expenses increase, the cash balance starts to drop. It looks pretty similar. Overall, big picture numbers, it's pretty close. Now, $500,000, that's a lot of money for most of us, but when we're talking about the district's budget, where it's lots and lots of millions, it's not that big of a difference. So that was pretty good news for us. This takes a look at your revenues, and just again to show you that surplus or deficit line that is in that black square or the black rectangle. We're going to be deficit spending each year according to this forecast. This year, if you remember last year, we ended with a slight positive. It was like 200,000 more than we'd spent. Very slight. This year, we're expecting to spend more than we're receiving. Next year is still a deficit, but it's not as big of a deficit, which is an interesting story, and we'll talk about a little bit when we talk about revenues. But it does exponentially grow in those last few years. The red circle is where we would need to talk about new tax money if we get there. So again, last 2 years, not predictable based on this forecast. Every 6 months, we have such dramatic shifts that we come back to the table. But right now, we're looking at a 3-month carryover of about 17 to 19 million, depending on which year of expenses you're looking at. That's really close to that 2027 number. I really think if we monitor and make some of the changes that we're talking about, that we will be able to push that out a year at least, if not more. So again, very, very positive. So some key takeaways on this year. Again, overall, a pretty positive forecast. It's a very big shift from a year ago when I was presenting some of the changes we were anticipating, but we are still deficit spending. That is a trend that just automatically marks us towards potential new money. So we'll just have to keep monitoring that year over year spend to try to keep the expenses low, but keep building up our revenues. Some of the things that we need to continue to monitor, and you as a board, please keep your eyes and ears open as you talk to the state legislature. They are still talking about property tax reform. There is a committee currently taking, they're holding hearings of the various interested parties. And so there may be significant changes that the legislature pushes out that could change how we fund. As you all know, property tax is our biggest source of revenue. State funding is our second biggest source. And so those changes can really dramatically shift what we're doing here in the forecast. Some of the big changes in this year that we saw, the biggest on the revenue side is our property tax values. As everyone knows, we are in a reappraisal year this year. Most of our surrounding counties had those in the last year or the year prior to that. Saw very dramatic shifts and increases. For us, we're going to see large increases. We talked with the CAC committee, the difference between our agricultural, our residential, our commercial and industrial properties. All of them are being valued differently. The other thing to note is we are on the 20 mil floor for residential. By the end of next year, we anticipate the values increasing to the point that we will be on the 20 mil floor for the commercial and industrial as well. The other really big property tax change that happened was the public utility tax, where our pipeline case got finalized. And so we have those values. It decreased, but not as much as they wanted. So we've built that in, and then this coming year, we expect about $1 million in back pay from where they weren't paying at full value because they had sued to try to get lower value. So we'll see that bump in that second year. We're getting $1 million in, about $1 million in back pay from that. The other thing to note, last in November, we talked a little bit about some of the initiatives we were hoping to you. We have implemented some changes for district-wide curriculum. We're really excited to do that, and we're continuing to put some funding towards those. We were not able to do big things this year because it was a brand new change from November. We're already part way through the year, but he has been building, our curriculum director has done a great job of building plans. He didn't want to just spend the money because it was available. He wanted to build some parameters and some guidelines for that. We did talk also about all-day, everyday kindergarten, and the biggest challenge there right now is our spacing. So even if money is available, where do we put the kids? Where do we put the teachers? We've used up a lot of those classroom spaces. So we will continue, hopefully, through the strategic planning process to get some really good plans for facilities and work through what that process will look like.
Having sat through all of the stakeholder groups that met, I think kindergarten is going to be something that was a common theme that was brought up amongst parents and people providing input in that area. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that comes out of the strategic planning process for us to look at going down the road. But like Mrs. Irvin said, at Bowman, that's not possible unless there's some building work or additions done, because we'd be looking at adding 8 to 9 sections. We don't have 8 to 9 available classrooms at that building at this time. So that's something we'll take a look at, and we'll come up with a plan for long-term, what that may look like for the district. But I will tell you on behalf of the curriculum department, thankful that the board has looked at putting money towards that. That's something as a district that when funds were tight, right, and the district was going through bad financial times, there was a rotation of curriculum that was being purchased every year, right? It was a math year, it was a science year, it was a social studies year, language arts year, whatever it may have been, and that rotation went away for a while, and some of our curriculum is in some real need for sort of updating. And we spent money in the last 2 years really on the early grades in terms of language arts, around the science of reading, around some of those requirements that we have as a state. For next year, we'll be implementing new math curriculum in grades, I believe, 3 through 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. And so there are some things that we will do in really methodical ways, but also it's important that we continue to put the money into those things, because it's been a while as a district, since that's been the priority of those resources. So thanks for your leadership in that, setting that money aside.
And then, of course, we always mention the expense side. I don't have any graphs here, but we know that the people are the costs, right? And so we have settled with the LEA union. That increases in here. That also dictates what our admin costs and our exempt costs are. So those are included. And I also did include the LCSEA contract that you will be voting on tonight. So I included that in this forecast as well. So. Any questions on the forecast before I move on? Okay, so we're at 10 months, 10 of 12 months, doing really well as according to our projections. We're currently at 147 days operating cash. We anticipate ending the year with about 123 days, our target being 120. So yay, right? We'll be right there if we spend and receive what we anticipate. And on this slide, we show at this point of the year, 9 month, well, I didn't change that to 10. I did change the percentage, so that should say 10 months of 12. We would be at 83%. You see there our revenues, we've received about 91%. And again, this goes back to, this is property tax, and we've received both halves of the year. So we've received the bulk of what we'll get there. We still have state funding to receive, so that's the bulk of the remaining percentage that we need to get. And then on the expense side, we've spent about 82%. And if you recall, I think every single month so far this year, we've been about 1% under that target, which is really great because we're not overspending, but we also know what we're spending. So that really helps when we're going into the forecast season of how much do we think we're actually going to spend. Really quickly, I didn't put a slide up here, but I did want to talk a little bit about the student fee collection. I know we've had a little bit of discussion about what does that process look like. We sent out letters on March 5th to all the parents who had outstanding lunch and student fee amounts in their accounts. A month went by and we collected about $88,000 from that. That does not count for all the parents who called in and said, hey, I shouldn't have been charged, or my student's on free or reduced, why was I charged? So that doesn't count for all of those phone calls, and I can tell you from our operations team, there were a lot of them. So I think that was a really great endeavor doing that physical letter, and I think that's something that we'll continue to do throughout the next few years.
Do you know what, like, a percentage of the collection of the 88 out of what was the total?
I do not have the
Approximately.
total. It was big. So the last number that I'll give you, so 2 months after that, so this was as of May 16th, so Thursday, the total collected had went to 153,400.
Okay.
So we collected a lot. Just one was a letter, right? The first month was the letter. The second month was it's catch up, it's about time for graduation, and then I think the final month is it's time for graduation. Got to get this stuff paid. So we've collected 153 over the last 3 months.
Okay.
So really, really positive. The bad news in that is we still have a lot of outstanding fees. And so now we're talking about, do we go ahead and send that letter out one last time for this school year? Do we wait until next year? So we're having some discussions with my team, just what does that look like? The ending collections currently are a little bit higher this year than they were last year. So we probably need to take a look what kind of drove that. Was it a larger class? Well, we have some analysis to do there.
Anything else?
All I have.
Okay, read through the list. C is amended appropriations. D, amended certificate of estimate resources. E is a list of fund transfers.
Probably
F,
want me to go through these transfers.
sure.
The first one we talk about every month, but this is Title II-A to Title I. We just use these federal dollars for Title I purposes, which is an allowable purpose. The next one, we have received several connectivity grants. And We get one every year that is $9,000. We also got an extra emergency one that we were awarded funds. We spent those funds, and then a portion of it, they came back and said, sorry, that was not eligible. So instead of having the general fund fund that cost, we're using the $9,000 grants to cover that because it is an eligible expense for those. So that's what that transfer is. The next one is simply moving the remaining cash balance from last year's class, high school class, or senior class, to this year's senior class for their expenses. And you'll see the same thing next year when we close out this year's class and move it to the new senior class. And then the final item here, we had a new implementation of math curriculum in grades 6 to 8, which I'll let Isaac talk a little bit about. But we were collecting from in-student fees, we were collecting a portion of the curriculum because it was a consumable. We were backfilling, we'd already spent the money we'd already paid the company for those funds, and we were collecting the consumable portion and putting it towards that. You want to jump in?
Yeah, so we are in about 2/3 of the way through the adoption of this math curriculum. And it was being used in grades 6 through 8. And the money was spent by the Board of Education previously, and when Mr. Sotzing was here, children were getting a workbook every year and being charged, because that's a consumable item that they get to keep, and they're writing in and all of those things. And that was going back into pay for the curriculum that was adopted, because that's how it could have been done. We began looking at a new curriculum in grades below 6 through 8 for math. And this year piloted a new curriculum because it was time for us to update and adopt something else. But we knew we needed something else. This year's test results, preliminary test results, have come in from the Ohio State tests. And the students in classes that participated in the pilot program with the new curriculum far outperformed the students who were participating with this curriculum that we have purchased here, and we were utilizing the workbooks with the students for. So we have side-by-side comparisons of kids from this year using the curriculum that we have in place that we're purchasing these workbooks for, and the other curriculum that we were piloting this year. It's the recommendation of Mr. Grayler, our curriculum director. He and I have sat down to look at the results within the last week. And I would recommend to the board to use curriculum money to finalize this payment of $75,000. We have money in the curriculum budget, and move forward with adopting the new math curriculum that we piloted this year. And that math curriculum adoption is actually like in grades 3 through 7, I believe. We'll still use the old curriculum for Algebra 1, and because it's working at that level. So this is a funds transfer from curriculum to pay off this remaining balance of $75,000. Based on the results, it is in our best interest as a district to move forward with the new curriculum that our students and teachers want and are performing well with. So we found a way to pay this off, but also move forward a year or two earlier if we do it this way. So.
Thank you. F is a list of donations received, and again, always very appreciative of those. G is an advance.
So on this one, the athletic PI fund is funding several different projects. All the ones listed here are coming in a little bit over budget. So we're asking the general fund to advance the $200,000 to the PI. As we get those donations for those projects, we advance it back. We return the advance, which is that second half of this. We're approving a return of the advance. This one was only $130, but we're very grateful for every single donation. But as those come in, we just repay the general fund.
H is activity, purpose, and budget statements. I is approve the 2024-25 substitute temporary position salary schedule. J is a memorandum of understanding between Lebanon City Schools Board of Education and the Southwest Ohio Council of Governments. K is to approve Lebanon City School fee schedule for 24-25. And L is to approve the forecast we reviewed earlier, May 24 forecast. Any questions on A through L? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 9 is public records requests. Item number 10 is policies, so I need a motion to approve final readings for the 14 board policies listed.
So moved.
Second.
I believe I've read all those last time, so I'm not going to read those again tonight. We have roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 11, other educational items. We need a motion to approve a non-resident student of parent employed to attend at Lebanon City Schools for the 23-24? Or is this,
It's for the current school year. It was
Okay.
somebody that was not found or caught in the previous, or
gotcha.
began
Same-
working
I know we
here
do this
after.
every year, so.
Yep. So our contract allows students to follow their parent employees. So if they live outside the district, they can come to school here. And we approve those so we could go through the proper procedures to tie back to their district of residence.
I don't have a motion yet on that one, do I?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 12, I need a motion to approve items A through Q. Let me verify that's Q. That's a lot of letters. Yes, A through Q.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'll read through the list. A is a list of retirements. B is a list of resignations. C is employment pending background checks. D is a list of substitute employment. E is supplementals. Looks like all the schools. F is a board resolution for employment of non-licensed coaches. G is volunteer supplemental coaches. H, a list of change of status. I, a list of volunteers. J, tutors. K is leave of absence and unpaid days. L is a list of stipends.
So just so you know that LPDC is the Local Professional Development Committee. It's outlined in state law what they do. It's a requirement that we have teachers serve on a local committee for reviewing the professional development of the staff members to see if they qualify for credit towards their license renewal. And our contract spells out that they have a stipend that they get paid if they satisfy their requirements of the committee, so.
Okay. M is a list of a couple other stipends. N, more stipends for the 2024-25 school year. O is seasonal worker. P is the revised handbook for 24-25. Isaac, you can stop me, tell me when.
That's right. 24, 25 exempt handbook. We have exempt employees that are not covered by any bargaining agreement, so they're not covered by the Classified Association Agreement, the Transportation Association Agreement, the Teachers Association Agreement. So we have an exempt handbook that incorporates aspects of those. We updated it here to include things that were added or changed as a result of negotiations with our bargaining units, so.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Q is approving a mentor for the 23-24 school year. Any questions on all of those? You want to say congratulations to our list of retirees. I think there were about a half a dozen on there.
Yeah, so we have Jenny Flagg, nurse at the junior high, Stephen Hardy, a bus driver, Deborah Hiles, custodian, Jamie Spatz, a teacher at Donovan, and Diane Weimer, an aide in one of our buildings. And so we just are thankful for their service to the district. We have a large number of retirees this year, actually. I think it's like 19 maybe. We'll be recognizing them on Friday at the end of the year staff program. But also just thank them for their service to our district. It's been great to have them.
Absolutely. Thank you. So roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 13, we'll start with A. I need a motion to approve the tentative agreement between Lebanon City Schools Employee Association and Lebanon City Schools effective July 24th through June 30th of 2027.
So moved.
Second.
This is a negotiated agreement with our transportation employees, so mechanics, aides on buses, school bus drivers, and the secretaries there in the office. It's becoming increasingly harder to find transportation staff members. So that's a situation. We are always up against that and trying to compete with those around us. I think we have something here that allows us to be competitive in the market in terms of salaries to be able to attract them. As a district, we were also able to, get some things in that negotiation that we think will help us as a district to become more efficient as well. I think it's a good opportunity for us to demonstrate to our employees that we value and care for them, but also, make sure that we can get employees to consider Lebanon City Schools when they're looking for employment in this area. So, thank the HR department here and the negotiating team for LCSEA. We were able to work through some very difficult and challenging sort of things, but it was a very good process, so I thank you for that.
Excellent. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And B, I need a motion to approve the school building start and end times for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
So I want
Hold
to
on.
put,
I need
oh,
a second.
Second.
sorry.
Second.
Thank you.
I spoke too soon. Sorry about that. I wanted to speak briefly here about this information will be shared, if the board approves it here in a moment, with our community tomorrow. There's one minor change down there in the bottom on Donovan Elementary. That should say 20 minutes later. And at Bowman, those times are a little bit later in the morning and a little bit later in the afternoon. So here's why. We did a transportation route study. We worked with the folks at OSBA, and then we went through Pete Chapisky, which actually was through Ennis Britton as a consultant, and did a route study of our district. And a couple things became clear. We have sort of a blend of 2 tiers and 3 tiers, and that doesn't mean much to anybody who, unless you know how school transportation works. But we have bus drivers that will leave in the morning, and let's say for the sake of this discussion, they would pick up high school and junior high kids on a bus. They're driving to Oregonia, right? They're going to get kids, junior high and high school kids on a bus. They're going to drive them back. Then they would dead time for a while, right? Because other schools aren't starting for a while. And then maybe go pick up Barry or maybe go pick up Donovan. But they didn't have the ability to run sort of 3 routes, 3 tiers, as so to speak. And the other thing that causes is when we have not uniform time between starting and ending times of school, it's difficult for them to always get their routes done. And so one concern we hear from parents or from staff members, even in the building sometimes, is there's a bus that's consistently late coming in the afternoon because it's still trying to get from, the Berry drop off to go get kids from Bowman or Donovan. So by building in a little bit of buffer in the morning, in between those things, and in the afternoon, we will be able to have more three-tiered routes, which allows us to ultimately be more efficient. The thing that the impact of this for a district is right now in school transportation funding, we are funded per pupil that we pick up on a bus. And so the more kids that we can pick up on buses, the more funding we get. There's also a factor in school transportation funding called an efficiency bonus. We do not currently achieve the efficiency bonus, but we're really close. So part of the route study is how can we become more efficient as a district, which would allow us to decrease some cost associated. And if we can decrease some cost, we would also qualify for the efficiency bonus, which would increase revenue. So this has the effect of decreasing some cost, increasing some revenue, which allows this to be a good financial situation. This was the first step proposed by the OSBA transportation folks and the route study to become more efficient. Only minor adjustments in starting and ending times. We recognize that that's a change, but we think it will allow us to be more efficient, which will increase funding and decrease expenses. This was something that we're gonna look at, and if there's possibilities for us to change that going forward, we think there's some other recommendations in the future that we may consider based off of those recommendations that would allow us to achieve even greater efficiency and reduce costs as a district for expenditures. I do not anticipate, this is not going to take buses off the road. This is not going to cost anybody their jobs. It's going to allow us to be more efficient and to ultimately as well decrease the route time for students on buses. So if we can shorten student ride times and increase efficiencies, I think it's something that as a district we need to consider doing. So we will share this information with staff, we'll share this information with families, but we wanted the board to establish the starting and ending times. You have actually seen the recommendations several months ago, really, probably at this point in time. And this is what we've been working on for a while as an administrative team to decide what we could accomplish in year one. Any questions about starting and ending times?
The only thing I'll add is, knowing the nightmare that is Miller Road at 7 o'clock in the morning, it'll alleviate some of that with the separation of the start times a little bit more.
The separation of the junior high and high school in the morning will greatly decrease for the mad dash to get to Drake Road,
Yeah.
right? So we
And
think
give
that's
those
going.
kids dropping off the younger siblings at the junior high more time to get to
Correct.
high
We
school.
think this is actually going to help traffic in the area as well.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
I would say my only concern is, and I completely understand the purpose of this, but for parents and the younger students, so those kids may not get home until
Almost 5 o'clock.
almost 5 o'clock for some of them. So that's late for little ones to get home.
So the goal of this would be is if we can have more buses available because they have the ability to do that third tier, that we would be able to do the in-town routes more efficiently, right? Get kids to Miller's Crossing, right, from the junior high off, and then those people can go do other things. We anticipate, based off of the route time stuff, that the afternoon routes, even for those Donovan and Bowman students, will be decreased.
So you might make up the 20-minute later dismissal.
It is possible that we can make up the time on the later dismissal. It's 15 minutes later in the afternoon, but 20 in the morning. So we think we will be able to reduce the route times in such a way that it may not impact their time as much as it does.
It's a good call out, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the concern, right? And the reality is school starting and ending times, it's the question I get from people that are concerned with the high school and junior high starting so early. Transportation dictates
Yeah.
starting and ending times.
Yeah.
And in a climate and right now where we have a lack of drivers in the market, right? Trying to operate as efficiently as possible, eventually means, we don't have that as many buses on the road down the road or something.
Will there be enough drivers if they're driving till, let's say, almost 5, but then you have sporting events that they have to drive to? Are there still enough drivers and buses to do those evening?
Yeah, because
routes to
currently
go.
we have buses that aren't dropping kids off until almost 5 o'clock as well. Because some of those routes are longer to begin with now because we have multiple schools on them. It is always a thing that every year they have to decide if they're going to drive those Bowman and Donovan students home or be available sooner in their day to take evening activities. We are very fortunate currently that we have a full staff in our transportation department. We haven't had to shut down. You see almost daily, there are schools saying, we're not taking bus 33 today. We don't have a driver for it, right? Parents, that has not been our case here at Lebanon. We think this will allow us to even be more sure of that, so.
Thank you.
This is, logistically, this is like super complex. Are we at a maximum capacity, or is it possible even to do a 2-tier busing schedule, or is it like impossible because we're maxed on?
We're maxed out.
Okay.
Our buses, for the most part, are running full or close to it. And so, the amount of transportation we do also for, other non-public schools as well, or the Career Center, or other those things take up routes as well. So we are the folks who do this all the time, right? This is a logistical nightmare for me, right? I would not know where to begin. There are people whose jobs are logistics, and this is what they do. Their recommendation is to try to get as many 3-tiered as possible because of the driver shortage, the cost of all doing those things, and the amount of, you just need as many buses driving as possible. So I don't think it's possible for us to get to a 2-tier system. We made 0 changes in this recommendation to walk zones. We're not requiring anybody to walk to school. There is no walkway to high school anyway, because there's not a sidewalk going down Drake Road. But we're not making any significant changes to who can receive transportation, just the starting and ending times of school. So 2 tiers is not possible for us with the amount of kids that we transport.
Okay.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item number 14, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on that?
No, sir.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cope?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all.